Hey guys, tonight we wander into a world you might never have noticed, yet it quietly shapes our everyday lives. The art of waiting in lines. You probably won't survive this, not because it's dangerous, but because the monotony might gently pull you towards sleep. And first, like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And comment your location and local time. It's comforting to know we're waiting together somewhere in the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a soft fan, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Imagine yourself in a cozy spot, wrapped in a blanket. Soft lamplight casting shadows. Gentle hum of the fan in the background. Outside, life goes on, but here, you float in the slow rhythm of waiting. You are about to travel through centuries of cues, standing in spirit, shoulder to shoulder with those who waited before you. Picture a sunlit village long ago. Dust rising with each step as people wait for water at the communal well. Children tug impatiently at their parents. Elders shift slowly, nodding quietly. Scholars still argue whether these early lines were purely practical or also social, lessons in patience and order. Either way, you feel the rhythm, the gentle pacing of human patience. Notice the small details. The woman ahead balancing clay pots on her head, coins clinking softly. A child playing with a dropped grain. Waiting is not silent. It carries its own music, the shuffle of feet, rustle of cloth, soft murmurs. You notice your own breath slowing, matching the rhythm of the imagined crowd. As you wander through this marketplace, smells of bread, herbs, and fresh vegetables mingle in your mind. Lines were functional, but also reflected subtle social habits. Perhaps a baker's apprentice slips forward with practiced grace, or an elder is quietly respected. Scholars debate these nuances, but for now, you simply breathe and watch, letting the rhythm of history settle over you. Imagine a gentle breeze brushing your scene, shifting to a Roman forum or Japanese bathhouse. Bathing rituals required waiting with decorum. Scholars still argue whether these were social lessons or practical necessities. A quirky detail, a man balancing a bucket in one hand while adjusting his hat with the other, patience in motion, hypnotic in its precision. You begin to sense a pattern. Waiting, repeated across centuries and cultures, becomes almost meditative. Courtiers, villagers, travelers, all standing, shuffling, whispering softly. Each step a rhythm, each pause a small harmony. The monotony is soothing. Tiny human behaviors, the fidgeting child, shifting attendant, balanced pot, decorate the rhythm without disrupting it. You feel it wrapping around you, a blanket of time, patience, and quiet amusement. Tonight, as you settle in, linger in this imagined cue, breathing slowly, feeling the soft pulse of human patience across centuries. The introduction ends here, gently, softly, ready to step further into ancient markets, temple lines, and royal audiences, drifting toward that peaceful, sleepy rhythm. You step quietly into an ancient marketplace, the sun warm on your shoulders, the scent of dust, straw, and fresh herbs mingling in the air. Around you, people shuffle slowly, patiently, waiting their turn to buy, sell, or trade. The rhythm is gentle, almost hypnotic, the hum of countless human footsteps and murmured greetings forming a subtle symphony. You notice the uneven stones beneath your feet, worn smooth by centuries of similar steps, each one a trace of those who have waited here before you. You wander past stalls filled with clay pots, woven baskets, and bundles of dried herbs. A merchant leans lazily against a post, carefully weighing coins for a customer who has been waiting longer than anyone can count. Scholars still argue whether these marketplaces functioned purely as centers of trade or if they also served as social arenas, teaching patience, negotiation, and communal etiquette. For now, you simply observe, letting the rhythm of waiting soak into your bones, your own breath slowing to match the slow shuffle of the crowd. And then there's the quirky, tiny detail that brings a faint smile to your lips. A small child, barefoot and wide-eyed, balances a stick across their shoulders, using it to juggle a few stray apples. The child's playful movements are oddly comforting, a tiny spark of life in the otherwise deliberate monotony of the queue. You notice the customer ahead adjusting a bag of grains, trying not to crush it, and the merchant shifting from one foot to the other with careful patience. The world here is full of subtle, slow-motion gestures, each small, precise action contributing to the overall rhythm. You notice that waiting in these markets is not simply about standing still. It's about timing, observation, and subtle negotiation. You see traders exchanging nods, subtle glances, and quiet whispers, tiny rituals that smooth the slow flow of trade. Perhaps someone steps slightly aside to let an elder pass, or a vendor offers a small sample to a patient customer. Scholars debate whether these small, social rules were intentional, or simply evolved naturally over time. Either way, you feel a sense of calm watching, immersed in the soft ebb and flow of humanity. As you wander further, your imagination drifts to the smells and textures of the goods around you. Bundles of herbs release faint aromatic clouds. Baskets of grain rustle gently, and the occasional clink of metal coins punctuates the gentle murmur of the crowd. Even the sound of a donkey shifting its weight in the corner of the market becomes part of the ambient hum of waiting. You notice yourself breathing slowly, matching your rhythm to the subtle cadence of steps and shuffles around you. The quirky details continue to catch your attention. A merchant fumbles slightly with a scale, dropping a single coin, which rolls across the stones before someone patiently picks it up and hands it back. A cat weaves through the legs of the waiting crowd, pausing here and there, perfectly indifferent to the humans. You smile softly, allowing yourself to drift in the slow, soothing pace of the market, feeling strangely connected to everyone, past and present, who has stood here, waiting, shuffling, exchanging small gestures. You wander past a stall selling small clay figurines, each one slightly imperfect, handmade, waiting for a buyer with the same quiet patience that fills the air. Scholars still argue whether marketplaces like these were more about trade or teaching, subtle social skills, yet in this moment, you are less concerned with the debates and more with the gentle flow, the quiet pulse of shared human patience. As the sun dips low in your imagination, casting long shadows across the uneven stones, you feel the hypnotic rhythm of waiting enveloping you. Step by step, nod by nod, shuffle by shuffle, the marketplace stretches into centuries of human history, each cue a testament to the slow, deliberate art of patience. You stand quietly among them, breathing slowly, feeling the calm seep deeper into your body. The shuffle, the soft murmur, the clinking coins, they all fade into a gentle hum that carries you softly into the next scene, the next section of our long, sleepy journey through history. You find yourself stepping into the shadowed courtyard of an ancient temple, the stone cool beneath your feet, the scent of incense curling lazily through the air. People around you stand quietly, some with hands folded, others clutching small offerings, waiting for their turn to enter the inner sanctum. The line stretches slowly, winding past carved pillars, flickering oil lamps, and the occasional resting cat, its fur catching the soft glow of the firelight. Scholars still argue whether these cues were purely practical, or if they subtly reinforced social order, teaching patience, humility, and reverence. For now, you simply move forward, gently swept along by the quiet rhythm of devotion. The soft murmurs of prayer and whispered greetings drift through the space, merging with the occasional clink of coins dropped into donation boxes. Your breathing slows to match the pace of those ahead of you. A slow inhale, a calm exhale. Waiting here is different from a marketplace. It is meditative, almost sacred. Each pause a small acknowledgement of time stretching, of humans performing rituals older than you can fully imagine. You notice how the crowd flows, some adjusting their scarves, others shifting their weight gently from foot to foot, each tiny motion contributing to the quiet pulse of the line. And then the little quirks begin to appear. A child tugs gently at a parent's robe, distracted by the incense smoke curling like tiny ghosts through the air. A merchant from the nearby village steps quietly to one side, balancing a small tray of flowers, offering them with a soft nod. You notice the subtle gestures, almost invisible, the elderly man adjusting his hat with careful respect, a woman smoothing her skirt, the way each person respects the space of those around them. The scene is oddly comforting, hypnotic even, as the collective patience of the crowd becomes almost tangible. As you move forward slowly, you notice the ancient carvings on the walls, scenes of worship, festivals, and ceremonies, reminders that patience in line is a thread running through centuries of devotion. Scholars still debate whether such imagery was meant to inspire awe or simply occupy the attention of those waiting you. Let your mind linger on the tiny details. A bird resting briefly on a nearby ledge, the flicker of an oil lamp reflected in polished stone, the gentle sway of hanging bells responding to a soft breeze. Every element contributes to the lull of anticipation, the quiet meditation of waiting in devotion. You wander past the donation box, noticing coins of every shape and size, some shiny, some dull, quietly clinking as they settle. A monk passes slowly, offering a faint nod, a soft smile, moving at a pace that seems perfectly attuned to the gentle flow of the line. The rhythmic breathing, the shuffle of feet, the occasional sigh, all form a gentle cadence, a hypnotic hum that seeps into your own mind. Even the smallest movements, the shift of a weighty basket, the careful handling of incense sticks, become part of the calming soundtrack of patience. The quirky little moments continue. Someone ahead drops a flower. Another person picks it up silently, nodding softly before continuing. A pair of birds dart in through a small window, hovering briefly above the heads of the waiting crowd, then flitting away. These tiny, unexpected events add life to the slow, sleepy rhythm, keeping you gently engaged without breaking the calm. You notice your shoulders relaxing, your mind softening, your heartbeat sinking to the pulse of the temple cue, and as the line winds forward, you begin to sense a timeless pattern. Temple lines across cultures and centuries. India, Japan, Rome share a common pulse, slow, deliberate, respectful. Waiting here is a practice, a quiet ritual that links every generation, every worshiper, every observer. Scholars still debate the precise origins of these customs. Yet in this moment, the debates fade, leaving only the meditative, hypnotic cadence of patient movement, gentle murmurs, and shared presence. Step by step, you feel yourself absorbed into the line. The quiet devotion, the tiny quirks of human life blending into a soft lull. The incense, the murmurs, the gentle shuffle, all fold together, wrapping you in the slow, serene rhythm of waiting. You are part of it, yet comfortably apart, observing and breathing, letting the centuries of patience guide you deeper into this hypnotic, sleepy journey through human history. You step quietly into the grand hall of a medieval palace, the high ceilings echoing faintly with your own breath. Around you, courtiers stand in long, orderly lines, each waiting patiently for their turn to approach the throne. The scent of polished wood, wax, and faint incense lingers in the air, and the soft murmur of whispers, footsteps, and distant bells creates a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Scholars still argue whether these lines were meant primarily to maintain order or to subtly enforce social hierarchies. Either way, you find yourself moving forward slowly, almost in time with the ancient cadence of royalty and patience. You notice the subtle choreography of the crowd. A lord adjusts his velvet sleeve. A noblewoman smooths her gown, and attendants shift slightly to accommodate the long line. Each movement is deliberate, precise, almost ritualistic. Waiting here is not just physical. It is a lesson in etiquette, an exercise in self-control, a silent conversation of gestures, glances, and posture. Your own breathing slows to match theirs. Gentle inhales and soft exhales syncing to the ambient rhythm of the hall. The little quirky details make you smile softly. A page boy fidgets nervously, balancing a tray of scrolls while peeking around at the proceedings. A small dog, perched in a corner, yawns slowly, utterly indifferent to the pomp and protocol. You notice the subtle exchanges, an arched eyebrow, a respectful bow, a whispered comment between two nobles, all part of the delicate dance of waiting, each gesture carrying meaning in its own quiet way. As you move further along, your gaze drifts to the throne itself, gleaming with gilded carvings, soft cushions, and an air of authority. Scholars still debate how much of this elaborate waiting was about ceremony versus practical governance, whether the queue was meant to display loyalty, patience, or simply ensure everyone had their moment. You feel the slow pull of centuries in the polished stone floors, the shadowed alcoves, and the careful alignment of the courtiers, all orchestrated into a hypnotic rhythm that soothes rather than excites. The soft clink of a coin, a scroll sliding across a desk, the quiet shuffle of shoes over stone, all of it becomes a meditative soundtrack. You notice how patience is rewarded, a gentle nod from the king or queen, a slight smile, acknowledgement without words. Waiting here is a performance, a silent ritual blending anticipation, decorum, and subtle power dynamics. The quirk of human behavior is everywhere. A scribe nervously adjusting quills, a noble secretly checking their reflection in polished metal, a foot tapping ever so slightly under the velvet robe. You begin to sense a pattern connecting all these moments, waiting in lines, whether for water, blessings, or an audience with royalty, carries the same gentle rhythm. Each step forward, each shift of weight, each quiet gesture forms part of a larger tapestry. Scholars still argue how universal these practices were across different courts and cultures. Yet in this moment, you are absorbed entirely by the soft, mesmerizing flow of human patience and ritual. Imagine the sunlight filtering through high windows, casting long, warm shadows across the hall. You hear the soft rustle of silk, the occasional cough, the distant sound of a bell marking the passage of time. The line moves deliberately, a steady pulse of humanity, a slow river of formality and expectation. Even the smallest quirks, the nervous page, the yawning dog, the fidgeting scribe, add charm and subtle life to the otherwise solemn procession. Step by step, you feel yourself drawn into the pattern, your own body relaxing, your mind attuning to the gentle ebb and flow. The shuffle, the murmur, the tiny sounds of anticipation, they all fold together into a lullaby of human patience. You are present, yet comfortably apart, floating in the slow, timeless rhythm of courtiers, kings, and queens, letting the centuries of waiting carry you softly forward, deeper into the hypnotic, sleepy world of history's lines. You wander into the lively, sunlit fields of a medieval fair, where the hum of merchants, performers, and townsfolk mixes into a slow, almost hypnotic rhythm. People move in lines, some waiting for games, some for food, others to glimpse a traveling performer. The scent of hay, roasting meat, and fresh bread mingles in the warm air. Scholars still debate whether these fairs were primarily economic, events or social gatherings designed to teach patience and order among villagers. For now, you simply stroll along, letting the gentle shuffle of humanity guide your imagination. The line you join snakes past colorful tents, wooden stalls, and small carts. A juggler tosses pins lazily, a musician plucks a lute, and a child tugs gently at their parent's hand. Impatient for a turn at the ring toss, you notice how waiting in these fairs is both chaotic and structured, a delicate balance of excitement and decorum. Step by step, the rhythm of people shifting forward, murmuring softly, checking their place, creates a surprisingly calming pattern. Quirky details catch your attention. A dog with a tiny bell on its collar wanders through the crowd, earning gentle chuckles. A merchant balances a basket of apples on their head, shifting slightly with each movement. Someone ahead drops a coin, which is retrieved by a courteous stranger before the line resumes. You notice the subtle etiquette. Patience is rewarded with small nods, smiles, or the occasional playful word. These small interactions add charm and texture to the otherwise slow progression of the queue. As you move along, you catch sight of the goods and activities, wooden toys, colorful ribbons, fragrant herbs, and hand-carved trinkets. Scholars still argue whether these fairs were centers of commerce or cultural education, teaching townsfolk manners, patience, and negotiation. You notice the human patterns. Children fidget, parents whisper reminders, elderly observers shift from foot to foot. Each movement seems small and insignificant, yet together they form a soft rhythm that flows through the crowd. The murmurs, the shuffle, the laughter, the occasional shout, all blend into a hypnotic lull. Even the smallest quirks, the tilted hat of a merchant, a child balancing a wooden toy awkwardly, a stray chicken wandering near a tent, become part of the ambient, soothing texture of waiting. Scholars still argue how universal these practices were across different courts and cultures. Yet in this moment, you are absorbed entirely by the soft, mesmerizing flow of human patience and ritual. Imagine the sunlight filtering through high windows, casting long, warm shadows across the hall. You hear the soft rustle of silk, the occasional cough, the distant sound of a bell marking the passage of time. The line moves deliberately, a steady pulse of humanity, a slow river of formality and expectation. Even the smallest quirks, the nervous page, the yawning dog, the fidgeting scribe, add charm and subtle life to the otherwise solemn procession. Step by step, you feel yourself drawn into the pattern, your own body relaxing, your mind attuning to the gentle ebb and flow. The shuffle, the murmur, the tiny sounds of anticipation, they all fold together into a lullaby of human patience. You are present, yet comfortably apart, floating in the slow, timeless rhythm of courtiers, kings, and queens, letting the centuries of waiting carry you softly forward, deeper into the hypnotic, sleepy world of history's lines. You wander into the lively, sunlit fields of a medieval fair, where the hum of merchants, performers, and townsfolk mixes into a slow, almost hypnotic rhythm. People move in lines, some waiting for games, some for food, others to glimpse a traveling performer. The scent of hay, roasting meat, and fresh bread mingles in the warm air. Scholars still debate whether these fairs were primarily economic, events or social gatherings designed to teach patience and order among villagers. For now, you simply stroll along, letting the gentle shuffle of humanity guide your imagination. The line you join snakes past colorful tents, wooden stalls, and small carts. A juggler tosses pins lazily, a musician plucks a lute, and a child tugs gently at their parent's hand, impatient for a turn at the ring toss. You notice how waiting in these fairs is both chaotic and structured, a delicate balance of excitement and decorum. Step by step, the rhythm of people shifting forward, murmuring softly, checking their place, creates a surprisingly calming pattern. Quirky details catch your attention. A dog with a tiny bell on its collar wanders through the crowd, earning gentle chuckles. A merchant balances a basket of apples on their head, shifting slightly with each movement. Someone ahead drops a coin, which is retrieved by a courteous stranger before the line resumes. You notice the subtle etiquette. Patience is rewarded with small nods, smiles, or the occasional playful word. These small interactions add charm and texture to the otherwise slow progression of the queue. As you move along, you catch sight of the goods and activities, wooden toys, colorful ribbons, fragrant herbs, and hand-carved trinkets. Scholars still argue whether these fairs were centers of commerce or cultural education, teaching townsfolk manners, patience, and negotiation. You breathe slowly, letting the sights, sounds, and smells wrap around you, synchronizing your own pace with the gentle forward shuffle of the waiting crowd. You notice the human patterns. Children fidget, parents whisper reminders, elderly observers shift from foot to foot. Each movement seems small and insignificant, yet together they form a soft rhythm that flows through the crowd. The murmurs, the shuffle, the laughter, the occasional shout, all blend into a hypnotic lull. Even the smallest quirks, the tilted hat of a merchant, a child balancing a wooden toy awkwardly, a stray chicken wandering near a tent, become part of the ambient, soothing texture of waiting. You find yourself strolling through a narrow medieval market, the kind that seems to breathe with its own rhythm. The air is thick with the scent of herbs, salted fish, and freshly baked bread. Everywhere you look, stalls are lined with colorful fabrics, shining copper pots, and bundles of spices. Yet for every object on display, there is a patient line of townsfolk, each waiting for a chance to haggle, to barter, or simply to buy. Scholars still argue whether these markets were more about commerce or community. Were they economic lifelines? Or did they serve just as much as social gatherings? For you, in this moment, the debate doesn't matter. You're simply caught in the lull of waiting. The lines move slowly, sometimes halting altogether as a negotiation drags on. You watch a merchant wave his hands dramatically, insisting his cheese is worth double what the customer offers. The customer shakes their head, smiling faintly, and counters in a voice both polite and stubborn. The two go back and forth, and everyone else just waits. Each step forward, each shift of weight, every sigh of impatience folds into a rhythm that is strangely soothing, like the market itself is humming softly. You notice the quirky details that lighten the mood. A child sneaks an apple from their mother's basket, only to be gently caught and scolded. A cat leaps lazily onto a stall table, knocking over a small stack of onions, which roll across the dirt with surprising speed. A man in a bright red hat tells a joke under his breath, making two women ahead of him stifle their laughter. These tiny sparks of life make the line less a burden and more a stage for human quirks. Mainstream history tells us that markets were the backbone of medieval towns. Weekly or monthly gatherings drew farmers, craftsmen, and traders from miles away, filling squares with color and chatter. But from your place in line, it feels less like grand commerce and more like a slow, shared performance. Everyone knows the rules. Step forward politely. Don't cut ahead. Keep your coins ready. Yet everyone also knows the unspoken part. Waiting means watching, listening, absorbing. The fair isn't only about what you'll buy, it's about what you'll witness. The sun filters through awnings of cloth, casting colored shadows on the ground. The shuffle of feet on dirt mixes with the clink of coins, the rustle of straw baskets, the occasional bray of a donkey tied nearby. You notice how everyone seems to sway in the same rhythm, shifting weight from one foot to the other, glancing briefly at the goods before looking forward again. This gentle ebb and flow pulls you deeper into the calm. And of course, scholars still argue whether bartering itself slowed down markets intentionally, making queues longer but also reinforcing patience. Was the drawn-out haggle a performance meant to show status, wit, and endurance? Or was it simply inefficient economics? The debate continues, but for you, it is just part of the hypnotic dance of waiting. Each pause, each counteroffer, each resigned shrug adds to the soft hum of time stretching. You catch more small, delightful quirks. A merchant sneezes so loudly that everyone in line chuckles. Someone ahead tries to balance a jug of ale on their hip, only for it to wobble dangerously, earning gasps before it steadies again. A boy holding a chicken looks up dreamily at the sky, the bird pecking his sleeve absent-mindedly. Every little scene adds texture, turning the line itself into entertainment. Step by step, you move closer to the stall. The goods become clearer, the shine of copper, the grain of wood, the fragrance of herbs. Your breathing deepens, slowing to match the rhythm of the crowd. The market's pulse is steady, timeless, a gentle reminder that waiting in line has always been part of human exchange. The shuffle, the murmur, the tiny quirks all fold together into a lull that makes you feel strangely comfortable, suspended between anticipation and calm. You are there, yet apart, floating through the centuries in the sleepy rhythm of market queues, where patience is currency and time itself feels like part of the trade. You picture yourself walking along a dusty road, surrounded by pilgrims from every corner of the land. Their sandals crunch against the earth, staffs tapping softly in a steady beat, and ahead looms a great shrine or cathedral. To reach it, though, means waiting long, winding queues that stretch from the outer courtyards to the Sacred Heart inside. The scent of candles, faint smoke, and worn leather bags hangs in the air. Scholars still argue whether these queues were a matter of necessity, too. Many pilgrims, not enough space, or if they were deliberately designed to test devotion. For you, it feels like slipping into a slow river of patience and prayer. Step by step, the line creeps forward. Each step forward, each shift of weight, becomes part of a larger rhythm. You hear soft murmurs of prayers, the whisper of rosaries being counted bead by bead, and the low chant of hymns drifting faintly through the crowd. Waiting here is less about impatience and more about surrender to time, to ritual, to the sacred anticipation of reaching the holy place. Quirky details lighten the solemn mood. A pilgrim drops his walking stick, and 3 others scramble to pick it up before he even bends down. A dog, clearly not part of the official procession, trots happily along the line, tail wagging, collecting scraps of bread from amused travelers. A child clutches a tiny carved figurine, holding it up proudly to anyone who looks, as if the whole queue is her personal audience. These tiny flashes of humanity soften the weight of waiting. Mainstream history tells us that pilgrimages were central to medieval faith. From Canterbury to Compostela, from Mecca to Varanasi, travelers endured months of hardship just to join these queues, hoping for a glimpse of relics or a blessing. Yet here, from your place inside the slow-moving line, it feels less like a grand event and more like a shared breathing exercise. The shuffle of sandals, the occasional cough, the rustle of robes, all blend into a meditative hum. The line inches forward, weaving past shrines, candles, and carved walls. The flicker of flames reflects in stone, and incense curls in lazy spirals toward the ceiling. You notice how people bow their heads slightly, not just in reverence, but almost to cope with the long wait. Patience becomes devotion. The line itself becomes part of the ritual. Scholars still debate this. Was the waiting itself a sacred act, shaping pilgrims into more humble, faithful souls? Or was it simply the unavoidable result of crowds? The answer drifts in the air, unresolved, but soothing in its ambiguity. More quirks reveal themselves. The longer you observe, a man hums softly, his voice out of tune, yet comforting. A woman offers a sip of water to the stranger behind her, and he accepts with a quiet nod. Someone sneezes loudly, breaking the hush, and then laughs sheepishly as the entire line chuckles gently. Each moment, however small, adds a layer of warmth to the otherwise solemn march forward. The line curves now, moving into narrower corridors, the air cooler, the light dimmer. You feel the weight of centuries pressing on these walls, the countless footsteps worn into the stone beneath your feet. The rhythm continues. Shuffle, pause, murmur. Step forward, shift, wait. The very act of standing here feels like slipping into a trance, the slow drip of time pulling you deeper into stillness. And then, finally, the shrine comes into sight. The flicker of golden lamps, the glitter of relics, the hush of awe. But even as you approach, the line doesn't vanish. It remains steady, slow, deliberate. The journey is not about the end, but about the waiting itself. The way your breathing matches the cadence of the crowd. The way time stretches and softens around you. You are there, surrounded by pilgrims past and present. Yet you float above it too, carried by the centuries of patient devotion. The line becomes timeless, a lullaby of footsteps and prayers, guiding you deeper into the soft, hypnotic history of waiting. You are younger here, not quite free, not quite grown, and bound by rules that stretch further than the narrow street where your guildmaster's workshop sits. You rise when told, move when told, and even the air you breathe seems to belong to the order of the guild. The smell of wood shavings or damp leather or ink stains itself into your clothes, and it lingers there heavy, reminding you of the hours that stretch in front. The workshop is dim, a single window letting in a pale line of light that never seems strong enough. You take your place at the bench, where the guild master has already laid out the work for the day. Nothing is quick. Each cut of the blade, each stroke of the file, each line of chalk or charcoal is measured. He watches, not with anger, not with kindness, but with a stare that says only, you must repeat it again. And you do. Morning begins with the simplest of tasks, sweeping the shavings, tidying the scraps, sorting tools into their boxes and slots. The hammer must be exactly where the hammer belongs, the awl exactly in its groove, the tongs set in order of size. You feel less like an apprentice, more like the workshop itself, an extension of its silence and routine. When the work begins proper, you are given the same task you had yesterday and the day before. It might be stitching the same pattern into a strip of leather, over and over, until the motion becomes not just boring but endless. The needle pricks the hide, the thread pulls through, and you count without realizing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. The number goes on, but the pattern looks no different from the first to the last. The guild master passes behind you, saying little, only adjusting your hand, telling you to keep the thread tight, not too loose, not too taut. You nod. You obey. The words repeat like bells in your head. Not too loose, not too taut. By mid-morning, the workshop hums with the same sounds it always does. A mallet tapping, a rasp scraping, a voice muttering measurements. Nothing changes. Nothing needs to. The other apprentices work in silence as well. You glance at them, only to see the same hunched backs, the same careful hands. One sharpens a blade slowly, dragging it across stone until the hiss becomes part of the air. Another files a plank, the dust rising so gently it looks like smoke. No one laughs. No one sighs. The rhythm has taken all voices away to 18 midday. You stop, but not for long. Bread again, hard and plain, dipped in broth that tastes the same every day. You eat because you must, not because you hunger for it. Conversation does not bloom. The guild master is there, and his silence holds. Once the bread is gone, the bench calls you back, and you obey. Sliding into the afternoon without choice. Afternoons stretch longer. The tasks grow heavier, though never more exciting. You scrape, you measure, you hammer, you test. If you make a mistake, you undo it and repeat. No correction is quick, because each action must be done properly. And properly means slow. You feel your arms ache, your shoulders stiffen. But the guild master does not see tiredness as reason enough. You press on. The light outside fades, and the workshop remains the same. Only the shadows shift, longer now, reaching over the benches. The air is thick with dust, with shavings, with the smell of oil and sweat. Your fingers are raw, but the thread must be tied. The plank must be planed smooth. The final stroke must be correct. Only then does the day release you. Evening comes, not with joy, but with more rules. You bow to the guild master, you clean the bench. You place every tool back in place. Then you walk through streets that are nearly empty, carrying the silence of the workshop with you. Apprenticeship is not a lesson in skill alone. It is a lesson in patience, in repetition, in hours that fold into each other until you can no longer separate one from the next. You lie down at night and find the sound of the file still in your ears, the motion of the needle still in your fingers. Tomorrow will be the same. Tomorrow will always be the same. You sit hunched at the long wooden desk, where the air feels cooler than it should, thick with the smell of ink, wax, and damp stone. The scriptorium is not loud, not lively, but cloaked in a silence that stretches and stretches until you forget the sound of your own breath. Only the scratching of quills across parchment breaks it, and even that sound is soft, careful, measured, as if afraid to disturb the stillness of the monastery. The bench beneath you is hard, carved flat, not made for comfort. Hours pass, and your spine stiffens until you are not sure if you are man or wood. The candle near your elbow drips slowly, each drop cooling into a wax mound that grows higher with the day. You shift your weight, but not too much, for movement might smudge the letters already written. The work is simple in idea, endless in practice. A parchment lies before you, smooth and pale, and line by line, word by word, you copy from the manuscript placed carefully to your side. There is no thinking, only repeating. The letters must match exactly, their curves and lines steady, uniform, obedient to rules set long before your hand held a pen. Mistakes are not forgiven. A blot of ink, a crooked line, and the page may be scraped clean with a knife, but the shame remains. Better not to air it all. Your quill scratches on. The sound becomes rhythm, not unlike rain on a roof. Ink dries dark, curling across the parchment in letters that look more like decoration than speech. The Latin phrases hold meaning for some, but not for you in this moment. You do not dwell on them. You only trace them, shape them, guide them into being. Around you, the other monks work in the same silence. Their backs bend like yours, their heads dip low, their quills scratch faintly. Once in a while, one coughs. and the sound seems too loud, echoing against the stone walls until it fades. Then the scratching resumes, the rhythm restored. Hours slip past, but time is strange here. It is marked not by clocks, but by candles, by the angle of the light through narrow windows, by the bell that rings faintly in the distance. You write until the letters blur, then pause, flexing stiff fingers, only to return to the task. One page finished means only that another begins. When the bell calls for prayer, you set the quill aside, careful not to spill ink across the parchment. You rise slowly, your legs reluctant after so long bent. The chanting in the chapel will last until your mind grows blank with repetition. Then you will return here, back to the waiting page. In the afternoon, the work changes slightly. Instead of words, you prepare the beginnings of a decorated letter, an initial painted larger than the rest. The brush feels strange after the quill, and the pigments, ground from minerals, smell sharp and earthy. You dab gold leaf, so thin it shakes at your breath, pressing it flat against glue until it clings. The shimmer is brief before the candlelight, a tiny brightness in the gray. Then it is back to ink, back to lines, back to words that stretch on without end. By evening, your eyes ache, the candle gutters low, and the parchment still demands more. You dip the quill again and again, listening to the faint scratch and sigh of ink on skin. Each letter is neat, each word controlled, yet they blur into each other until they might as well be the same. You no longer copy meaning. You copy shape. You no longer write for yourself. You write for the page. At last, when the final bell tolls, you put the quill down. Your hand is stained dark, your back sore, your eyes heavy. You bow your head and leave the desk as it was, parchment aligned, ink pot sealed. Tomorrow, it will be waiting exactly as you left it. You walk through stone corridors cold with night air, carrying the silence of the scriptorium with you. In bed, you close your eyes, and even then you see letters drifting across the dark, endless, ordered, eternal. The path stretches before you, rutted with cart wheels, softened by rain, and beaten flat by countless feet before yours. You join the line of pilgrims, each step slow, each breath misting in the cool morning air. The road feels endless, and that is the point. You are not meant to arrive quickly. You are meant to walk, to endure, to shuffle along with others who share the same quiet purpose. Your pack is light, though it digs at your shoulders. A wooden staff clicks softly against the earth with each step. Ahead, cloaks sway with the motion of bodies, their hems brushing against dust and mud alike. Some carry shells tied to their hats, the symbol of pilgrimage, proof that they walk with intention. Children cling to parents' hands, their smaller feet stumbling now and then, quickly steadied. The line stretches far beyond sight, bending with the road until it disappears like smoke. The rhythm of the walk is steady. Step, shift, pause. Then again, each step forward, each shift of weight, becomes its own prayer. The road itself seems to hum with it, as if thousands of shoes have left an echo that never fades. Along the way, voices murmur, a prayer whispered, a hymn hummed under breath, a story shared to pass the miles. Then silence, the kind that makes the world feel wide and the body small. Birds wheel above, fields spread on either side, and still the line moves on. No one rushes. There is no rushing here. At the edge of a village, the queue slows. Pilgrims wait to wash their feet at the fountain, one by one stepping forward, rinsing off mud and drinking cool water. You wait, watching the droplets glimmer in the sunlight, listening to the splash and trickle. It feels like eternity before you bend and sip. But when you do, the water tastes better than wine. As evening falls, the line coils into a makeshift camp. Blankets are unrolled, fire sparked, bread torn and shared. You wait again, this time for food to circle round, for space near the fire, for the silence of night to settle. The smell of smoke clings to everything, and your clothes feel rough against skin already tired. You lie down, staring at the stars, countless and steady above the weary crowd. You think of the miles behind and the miles ahead, yet the thought does not overwhelm. The waiting, the walking, the pausing, they have become the journey itself. By dawn, you rise with the others, the line forming again almost without words. You fall into place, your steps matching theirs. The road stretches on, a living thread weaving across the land. You do not lead, you do not lag, you simply walk, and in that walking, in that waiting, you are part of something larger, something that continues whether or not you notice. And as the bell of a distant chapel rings faintly on the wind, you realize you may not even care about reaching the shrine tomorrow or next week. The destination fades. The queue itself, the endless, patient shuffle forward, is the pilgrimage. The hall glows with torchlight, shadows dancing across long wooden tables heavy with platters. You are not seated among the lords and ladies. You stand at the edges, part of the quiet procession of servants, waiting for the moment your hands are needed. The nobles chatter, voices rising and falling like waves, laughter spilling with the clink of goblets. The smell of roasted meat and spiced wine drifts thickly in the air, teasing and unreachable. You wait, hands clasped before you, eyes lowered. The trays are heavy, and when one is emptied, you step forward to take it, then retreat to your place in the line again. Time moves differently when you are waiting. Each minute stretches like taffy, pulling thin and long. You hear every detail, the scrape of knives on plates, the crunch of bread crusts torn apart, the sigh of a noble leaning back in satisfaction. For you, the meal is not a feast but a pattern of standing, stepping, pausing, repeating. The other servants shift subtly beside you. A cough stifled, a yawn quickly hidden. The rhythm of waiting becomes its own ritual, shared silently. No one rushes. No one dares. Each roll is small, but together they keep the banquet turning smoothly. At one point, a dish of steaming stew makes its way down the line of servants. Each hand holds it steady before passing it forward, careful not to spill. The line becomes a chain, each link reliant on the next. You feel the heat seep into your palms, then let it go, watching it disappear toward the center of the hall where laughter greets it. The nobles toast. They raise goblets high, liquid glinting in the firelight. Scholars still argue whether such banquets were about food or about display, but you already know the answer. The feast is performance. The waiting is its silent backdrop. Without one, the other cannot exist. Hours creep by. Candles burn low, dripping wax that pools like frozen rivers on the wooden stands. The nobles grow louder, red-faced with drink. You still wait. Each step forward, each shift of weight, feels heavier now. Your stomach knots with hunger, yet you do not break the line. The feast must finish before the waiting ends. Finally, as night deepens, the banquet begins to thin. Dishes are scraped clean, goblets drained. Laughter fading into slurred goodnights. One by one, you clear the tables, lifting trays sticky with grease and crumbs. Your arms ache, but the rhythm remains. Take, carry, return, wait. Over and over, until nothing is left. When at last the hall is empty, the silence feels louder than the feast itself. You stand for a moment, letting the stillness wash over you. The waiting is over, yet it lingers in your bones, in the ache of your legs, in the weight of your breath. Outside, the night air is cool, the sky scattered with stars. You step into it, free of the hall, but still carrying its rhythm. The feast was theirs. But the waiting was yours, and in its own way, just as endless. You stand by the great wooden gate, iron-banded and towering, the kind of door that looks like it could keep out the world itself. The air smells of damp stone and horse sweat, a mix you've long since stopped noticing. The shift began at sunrise, and it will stretch until the bell tolls, though you've already lost track of the hours. The job is simple in word, endless in practice. You stand, you wait, you watch, feet planted, eyes scanning the road, hands resting on the shaft of a spear that feels heavier with each passing hour. The world does not move quickly here. It creeps, one footstep at a time. Travelers approach in slow trickles. Merchants with carts piled high, peasants carrying baskets, a rider leading a stubborn mule. Each one must stop. Each one must wait. The line forms, sometimes short, sometimes long, but always there. You step forward only when required, checking a sack, asking a question, nodding or waving them through. Then it is back to waiting. The sun arcs higher, light slanting across the battlements. Shadows shift, stretching slowly, then shrinking back. Each change of light feels like the only measure of time you're given. The silence between arrivals grows long. You shuffle your weight from one foot to the other. Each step forward, each shift of weight, becomes a tiny ritual against the monotony. Sometimes another guard coughs or mutters a word. Sometimes the wind rattles the banners overhead, their colors flapping briefly before hanging limp again. These are the highlights of the hour. Not a battle, not a raid, just the quiet endurance of standing at a threshold that rarely changes. When a noble carriage rattles down the road, the line thickens. Villagers pause to let the wheels pass. Oxen shift uneasily, voices murmur. You hold up a hand, and all must wait, peasants and nobles alike, for the gate to open at its own deliberate pace. The hinges groan, the wood creaks, and for a moment the gate feels alive, as if it resists every movement. Scholars still argue whether medieval guards were trained, warriors or little more than hired watchers. But either way, their hours were the same. Long, slow, uneventful. And so are yours. The day stretches. Dust clings to your boots. Sweat trickles beneath your armor. The spear weighs heavier and heavier. Yet you do not leave. That is the work. To hold the place. To wait so others may pass. By evening, the road grows quiet again. The last merchants hurry through. The last villagers return home. The gate closes with a final shuddering thud, the iron bar sliding into place. The sound echoes in your chest, a note that says, the waiting here is done, but only for tonight. Tomorrow at sunrise, you will stand again, watching the road, waiting for the line to form. The gate does not move without you. The castle does not breathe without its patience. And so you will be there, each step forward, each shift of weight, part of the endless rhythm of a world that waits as much as it fights. The marketplace hums like a hive, though the hum is uneven, broken by shouts and pauses, by the shuffle of feet and the rustle of cloth. You step into the flow, and almost at once you are caught in the long queue snaking toward the baker's stall. The smell of bread drifts thick through the air, warm, yeasty, almost sweet. It clings to your stomach until hunger sharpens every breath. The loaves are stacked behind the counter, round and golden, crusts cracked like sun-baked earth. You know they will not last. They never last. That is why the line stretches so far. Curving around the square like a coiled rope, you join it, your hands tucked into your cloak against the morning chill. The people ahead shift slowly. Each step forward, each shift of weight, feels like a small victory. The murmur of voices passes through the line, traders complaining of taxes, mothers scolding restless children, old men muttering about the price of flour. The queue inches along. You glance at the other stalls, spices glittering like dusted jewels, bolts of cloth hanging heavy, cages of chickens clucking nervously. But none of it tempts you more than the bread. Hunger makes the choice for you, as it does for everyone else waiting. Sometimes, the line pauses so long it feels as though the world has forgotten you. A merchant haggles too long. A boy drops his coin and scrambles in the dirt. The baker wipes sweat from his brow, taking his time, as though each loaf is a treasure he is reluctant to part with. You wait, because there is nothing else to do. Scholars still argue whether medieval markets were centers of freedom or traps of necessity. But standing here, you know the truth leans both ways. Choice exists, yes, but only for those who can afford it. For everyone else, it is the bread line, day after day, patient and unchanging. The crowd thickens as the sun climbs higher. Voices grow sharper, bodies press closer. A woman sighs loudly when the line halts again. A child tugs at your sleeve, then scurries off. You move a step forward, then another, the rhythm pulling you into its slow, steady dance. Finally, the stall looms close. You can see the baker's hands, dusted white with flour, moving quickly, pulling loaves from the stack, weighing coins with a suspicious glance. The smell is stronger now, almost dizzying. Your stomach knots with impatience. When at last it is your turn, you hand over the coin, feel its loss, and take the warm bread in return. The crust crackles under your fingers, still faintly hot from the oven. For a moment, the waiting is worth it. For a moment, the line behind you vanishes. But as you step aside, tearing a piece of bread and tasting its simple salt and warmth, you see the line still coils on, just as long as before, just as restless. The bread will be baked, sold, eaten, and longed for once more. You enter the cathedral, its stone arches rising so high they seem to vanish into shadow, heavy with silence broken only by the shuffle of feet and the soft creak of wooden pews. Light filters through stained glass, painting the floor with patches of red and blue. You find the line easily. It snakes along the side aisle, a quiet procession of souls waiting their turn for confession. Each figure stands or kneels in stillness, hands folded, lips moving soundlessly. You join them, the hush of the space pressing down until you too keep silent. Each step forward, each shift of weight, feels less like movement and more like surrender. A woman clutches a rosary, beads slipping one by one through her fingers. A young boy fidgets before his mother lays a firm hand on his shoulder. An old man leans heavily on his cane, eyes closed, as if the act of waiting itself is prayer. The confessional is small, dark, almost hidden. The narrow door, the shadow of a priest waiting inside. The line creeps toward it, person by person disappearing into the dim space, then emerging lighter, quieter, sometimes with tears, sometimes with relief. Time blurs in this place. There is no clock, only candles burning down, their wax dripping in slow, glistening trails. The bells outside toll the hours. Absorbed by stone, the waiting itself becomes timeless. Your thoughts wander as you stand there. You imagine sins whispered through the screen, lies told, tempers lost, moments of weakness admitted in low voices. Scholars still argue whether confession was about forgiveness or control. But standing here, you sense it is about waiting for judgment. The line moves, pale, sometimes smiling faintly. When at last your turn arrives, you push the door gently, wood creaking under your hand. You kneel in the dim space. You speak softly, your own words drifting into the dark. It rises and falls like a tide, steady, almost lulling. Instructions are given, penance assigned, forgiveness promised. You step out again, back into the cathedral's cool air. The line has shifted forward without you. New faces waiting, old ones gone. The rhythm continues, as endless as the bells that toll outside. As you leave, the colored light of stained glass falls across your shoulders. You feel the weight of waiting still, but softer now, as if it too has been absolved. The line remains, but you have stepped through it, carried along by the quiet current of patience that fills this stone vessel of faith. As the afternoon drifted into evening, the camp began to shift. Shadows stretched long over the trampled earth, fires sparked to life, and the smell of smoke mingled with the faint salt of sweat and leather. The soldier, now weary but not yet granted rest, turned toward the next task of his endless day, cleaning and repairing the very tools that had both protected and burdened him. The shield came first. Its wooden face bore scratches like scars, reminders of drills, marches, and perhaps a skirmish or two. The rim, edged with iron, showed flecks of rust where moisture had crept in. The soldier lowered himself onto a stone, balanced the shield against his knee, and began scraping gently at the imperfections with a small knife. Every scrape echoed faintly, like the memory of battle sounds, metal on metal, wood groaning under pressure. He knew this was no idle chore. A shield neglected could fail in the moment it was most needed, and failure in such a moment meant death. Once satisfied, he rubbed animal fat into the wood, darkening the grain and sealing out the damp. His movements were steady, almost meditative, a rhythm learned from countless repetitions. Around him, other men worked the same way. A low chorus of scraping, rubbing, sharpening filled the camp, an orchestra of survival. Next came the sword. He laid it across his lap, its blade dull from long marches where dust and grit clung to it. The soldier reached for a whetstone, dampened it with spit, and drew the stone along the blade's length. A hiss sang with each stroke, a sound so familiar it was almost comforting. The blade glimmered faintly as its edge was renewed. Though no one nearby would call it beautiful, beauty was for poets and artists. For soldiers, a blade's worth lay only in its sharpness and reliability. As he sharpened, his thoughts drifted. How many times had he been told this sword was his companion, his second soul? He wondered if that was true. Companions, after all, could speak, could laugh, could share bread or wine. The sword could only cut. Yet here he was, tending to it as tenderly as a farmer tended crops or a shepherd his flock. Perhaps the comparison was not so far-fetched after all. When the sword was ready, he tested its edge with a thumb, wincing slightly at its keenness. He sheathed it, slid the scabbard close to his side, and reached for his sandals. The leather straps were worn thin, frayed in places, and caked with dust. One by one, he unwound them, checked the soles, and rubbed oil into the dry leather. Every step of tomorrow's march depended on these simple bindings, and he knew well the misery of a broken strap on a long road. The sandals, though plain, were the bridge between him and the endless earth he had to cross. A murmur of voices rose around him, men joking, complaining, humming snatches of songs from home. Fires flickered, throwing orange light across tired faces. Sparks drifted upward into the dimming sky, like brief stars vanishing too soon. The soldier glanced up at the heavens. Already, the first true stars were appearing. He wondered if anyone back in his village was looking at the same ones. Did they think of him? Did they even know where he marched now? Or why? He leaned back for a moment, resting his hands on his knees, feeling the faint ache in his arms from the day's labors. The shield, the sword, the sandals, each had demanded his care, and each would carry him into whatever tomorrow brought. There was no glory in this work, no triumph. Yet without it, triumph would be impossible. The small things, the hidden chores, built the foundation on which battles were won. As the night deepened, the soldier set aside his tools and pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders. The camp settled slowly, voices dimming, fires burning low. Tomorrow would bring more marching, more waiting, more scraping and sharpening. And so the cycle continued, not with banners flying or trumpets blaring, but with the quiet devotion of men tending to their gear, step by step. As the empire moved forward one weary footfall at a time, you find yourself stepping through a thick gray haze, the kind that clings to brick walls and chimneys, leaving everything with the same grimy sheen. You don't cough. This isn't that kind of story, but you notice. The air tastes heavy, like cold dust slowly dissolving on your tongue. And right there, outside the massive factory gates, the line stretches out longer than the morning shadows. You slip into it, pressed shoulder to shoulder with men, women, even children, all waiting for the same metallic clang of the bell that decides their hours. Each step forward is measured not by excitement, but by habit. A shuffle, a sigh, a glance at the clock tower looming above. The factory bell doesn't just signal when to begin. It also tells them when to end, when to eat, when to rest. You feel your time isn't really yours, it belongs to the rhythm of iron gears and steam pistons hidden behind the gates. And in a strange way, waiting in line here feels like a rehearsal for surrendering the rest of your day. You overhear one worker whisper that this system is new, unnatural even. Before factories, people's days bent with the sun, not with the clang of bells. Historical fact time. In the 19th century, factory owners installed clocks and whistles, precisely to break the old rhythm of village life, replacing natural cycles with industrial time discipline. The line you're in isn't just about entering. It's a training ground for a world where even minutes have owners. The person in front of you fidgets with a pocket watch. It's dented, cheap, probably pawned and repurchased more than once. You realize the watch isn't just decoration, it's survival. If you're late, the gate closes, the shift is lost, and wages vanish. Waiting in line here isn't passive. It's an anxious performance of punctuality. A child tugging at his mother's skirt looks up at you, bored. He drags a stick along the dusty ground, tracing squiggly lines that get stomped out by impatient boots. And then, your quirky detail, he begins drawing tiny stick figures also waiting in line. A miniature version of the very scene you're stuck in. You can't help but smile. Even a bored child recognizes the absurdity of standing still for so long. You glance around. Some workers gossip, some doze on their feet. Some curse under their breath about wages shrinking faster than their stomachs. But you also hear talk of protest, whispers about strikes. The line becomes more than just bodies, it's a hidden forum. Here, out of sight from managers, people share anger, plan action, even dream of change. Scholars still argue whether factory lines train people to accept industrial discipline, or whether they secretly nurtured rebellion by forcing workers to stand together, day after day, shoulder to shoulder. Were these cues tools of control or accidental classrooms of resistance? You don't answer, you just wait with them, feeling the tension hum beneath the monotony. The bell finally clangs. It isn't soft, it isn't kind. It slices the morning open. The gates creak, and the line lurches forward as though pulled by an invisible chain. One by one, the workers vanish inside the brick monster, swallowed whole by smoke and steam. When it's your turn, you step over the threshold and feel the ground vibrate with machines. You're no longer waiting, but you know another line is already forming. Somewhere, for lunch, for wages, for home. And even as you walk into the mechanical roar, you think about how every shuffle of feet, every tick of the clock, is part of a history of waiting that isn't boring at all. It's quietly shaping how entire societies move. You drift now toward a crowded train station, its roof an iron and glass skeleton stretching high above your head. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and wet wool, a mix that clings to every traveler who has rushed through this place. Ahead, the ticket window glows with a brass frame. And of course, a line, long, impatient, snaking back past the benches. You step into it, clutching a few coins in your palm. The murmur of voices here is different from the factory gates you just left. It's a blend of excitement, urgency, and irritation. Travelers shuffle forward, glancing nervously at the great clock that hangs like a silent overseer above the departures board. A woman in front of you mutters, her bonnet slightly crooked, her umbrella dripping onto her shoes. Behind you, a man coughs theatrically, as if his exasperation alone could move the line faster. Railways changed everything. Historical fact, by the mid-19th century, railways forced governments to standardize time zones. Because before that, each town set its clocks by the sun. Imagine the chaos. Every village clock a little different. Every train schedule a nightmare. The line at this ticket window isn't just about buying a slip of paper. It's about entering a brand new world where time itself is regulated, polished, and sold alongside travel. A boy in a cap darts past, waving a newspaper almost as big as himself. He yells out headlines no one can quite hear over the hissing steam, but everyone pretends they did. Your quirky detail arrives, in the form of a pigeon that somehow flaps its way into the station. Instead of panicking, it simply lands on the head of a stern gentleman in line. He doesn't notice, or maybe he pretends not to, but the bird sits there like a crown, bobbing every time he sighs. You can't help but smirk, and a few others in line do the same. Tiny moments of comedy in the monotony of waiting. Each step forward brings you closer to the brass-rimmed window. The clerk inside looks like he hasn't smiled since the century began. His mustache twitches as he stamps tickets with mechanical precision. The pace is agonizing, but no one dares to shout. You sense a silent hierarchy. The clerk has the power, the line has the patience, and the trains have the schedule. Scholars still argue whether queues at railway stations help build civic order or simply showcased inequality. The wealthy bought first-class tickets at separate counters, breezing past the masses. Meanwhile, ordinary passengers shuffled endlessly, learning the discipline of waiting not as a choice, but as a necessity. Was the railway queue a democratic space where everyone waited together? Or just another reminder of who got to skip ahead? The line inches forward. You feel the weight of the coins in your hand growing heavier with every shuffle. When your turn comes, the clerk barely looks at you. He slides a thin rectangle of paper under the glass, mutters the destination, and clangs the drawer shut. That's it. After all that waiting, your prize is just a ticket, fragile, forgettable, and yet the only key to moving forward. You glance back at the line stretching even longer now. New travelers streaming in, sighing as they spot the end. It's almost poetic, you think. The railway promises speed and movement, yet it begins with stillness, with bodies held in place. Learning once more that progress always makes you wait first. Clutching your ticket, you step aside, the pigeon flapping away at last, and the station bell rings. Another journey begins, but always with a queue. You wander now into a different kind of line, one filled not with soot-streaked workers or frantic travelers, but with children, clutching cotton candy, and parents already regretting their life choices. The air here is sticky with sugar, fried dough, and the metallic tang of roller coaster rails baking in the sun. Ahead of you winds a brightly painted barrier, zigzagging endlessly like a cruel joke. You step in anyway, joining the queue for the ride everyone insists is worth it. The crowd feels different here. People chatter nervously about the drops and loops. A father tries to convince his son that screaming is part of the fun. And somewhere nearby, a teenager brags loudly about keeping his eyes open the whole time. The line isn't silent like the factory. Gates are tense like the ticket. Window, it's buzzing with energy. Anticipation stretching time thin. Historical fact, amusement parks, as we know them, trace back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when places like Coney Island transformed the idea of public leisure. But with rides came lines, and suddenly, waiting wasn't just a burden, it was part of the ritual. Standing still, listening to screams from the ride ahead. You build suspense like a drum roll before a punchline. A man in front of you wears a ridiculous, oversized foam hat shaped like a dragon. It keeps slipping sideways, nearly knocking into the woman behind him, who eventually gives up and starts laughing instead of complaining. There's your quirky detail, a foam dragon wobbling drunkenly as if it, too, is waiting for its turn to be hurled through the air. You shuffle forward. The line snakes past colorful signs promising only 20 minutes more, a lie you've already caught 3 times. Somewhere, a speaker blasts cheerful music that grows less cheerful the longer it repeats. You realize the ride itself might last 2 minutes, but the queue? It devours an hour without apology. Scholars still argue whether amusement. Park lines are cruel. Inefficiencies are cleverly designed. Parts of the experience. Some say waiting amplifies excitement, making the eventual ride more thrilling. Others argue it's a calculated trick, forcing guests to accept scarcity and ration their time. Are you savoring anticipation or just falling for psychological manipulation? The debate plays out silently all around you as parents sigh. Teenagers check watches, and kids bounce restlessly on the balls of their feet. You notice subtle strategies. Railings zigzag so you can't see the end. Tricking your brain into thinking progress is faster. Signs keep you hopeful. Staff members shout encouragement. And every so often you glimpse the ride launching overhead. A screaming blur that reminds you why you're still standing here. Waiting becomes entertainment itself, a strange, shared endurance game. At last, you find yourself at the loading platform. The air smells of grease and ozone. An attendant waves you forward with theatrical urgency, as though you've been chosen for a secret mission. You sit, buckle in, and in seconds, the line that devoured an hour vanishes behind you. The ride launches, rattles, drops. And it's over before your brain fully catches up. 2 minutes gone. And as you stumble off, dizzy and laughing, you glance back. The line is already longer than before, full of new faces who will endure the same ritual. You realize the ride is just one part of the story. The line is the real stage, where patience, frustration, and anticipation mingle in a way no roller coaster can replicate. Standing there, you almost want to rejoin, almost. But instead, you let the foam dragon hat man shuffle past, his head still tilting comically, and you wander on to find the next queue waiting just for you. You shuffle forward now into a line that feels heavier than the others. No cotton candy, no roller coasters, no chance of thrill at the end. The air is thin, cold, edged with the sharp scent of boiled cabbage drifting from nearby kitchens. This is wartime, and everyone in line knows it. Scarcity hangs thicker than smoke, and you take your place among weary neighbors. Ration books clutched like lifelines. Each person carries the same anxious energy, though they show it differently. A soldier's widow with her shawl pulled tight counts the coupons again and again. A small boy stares at the grocer's shop front, as though staring could make it, filled with more than just tins and turnips. An old man hums under his breath, the tune warbling off-key but steady, as if holding the line together with sound alone. Historical fact: during both world wars, rationing wasn't just a policy, it was a survival mechanism. Families were allotted tiny amounts of sugar, butter, meat, or tea. In Britain, for instance, even children's sweets were rationed, and black markets thrived in alleyways behind shops. Standing in these queues wasn't optional. It was the price of staying fed. You notice a woman ahead of you has tried to make the wait more bearable. She's holding a deck of playing cards, not for herself, but for her restless children. She deals them imaginary hands right there on the cobblestones, keeping them busy while the line refuses to move. That's your quirky detail. Side of a wartime poker game where the stakes are patience, not pennies. The grocer finally opens the door, and the line jolts alive. One step forward, then another, the pace agonizingly slow. Whispers spread. They say there's a bit of cheese. Today, someone heard there might be. Oranges. You feel the rumors, weaving through the queue like electric current, keeping everyone alert, desperate, even hopeful. Scholars still argue whether ration queues created unity or resentment. Some claim these lines built a shared sense of endurance. Neighbors supporting neighbors, teaching patience and sacrifice. Others argue they seeded bitterness, rich families finding ways around the rules, poor families waiting for hours only to reach an empty shelf. Were queues symbols of communal strength or daily reminders of unfairness? You feel both arguments tugging at you as the minutes stretch. The boy in front of you tugs his mother's sleeve, whispering, "Will we get bread today?" She hushes him gently, but her eyes flicker with the same question. You realize the line isn't just a physical place, it's an emotional waiting room, where hope and hunger stand side by side. When you finally reach the grocer's counter, the ration book is checked, the coupon snipped, the exchange carried out with solemn efficiency. You're handed a small paper-wrapped bundle, lighter than you imagined. After all that time, it hardly fills your palm, yet the weight of it feels immense. Not in pounds, but in meaning. Security for one more meal, one more day. As you step aside, the line behind you hasn't grown shorter, it's doubled. Faces blur together in the cold, some resigned, some angry, some quietly determined. And as you walk away, bundle clutched tight, you can't help but think, this isn't just history. It's the blueprint of human endurance, drawn out one shuffled step at a time. You step into a room that doesn't feel like a room at all. It feels like a trap disguised, with beige paint and stiff chairs. The fluorescent lights buzz faintly overhead, casting everyone in the same washed-out tone. You take a seat, number slip in hand, and realize this isn't a line you can see. It's a line you can only feel. Welcome to the bureaucratic waiting room. Here, the line is invisible. Numbers tick forward on a little screen, so slowly it feels like time itself is on break. People sit in scattered silence, their patience tested in 1,000 small ways. A woman sighs loudly every 3 minutes, as if she's on a personal mission to remind the room of their collective misery. A man taps his pen on a clipboard with the rhythm of a ticking clock. Louder, louder, until finally he stops, leaving behind an aching quiet. Historical fact: modern bureaucracies, especially in the 20th century, grew alongside the expansion of governments and services, passports, licenses, welfare, taxes. These systems promised efficiency, but also birthed a new kind of queue, the administrative wait. Unlike bread lines or ticket counters, this line isn't outside on the street. It's trapped inside paperwork, shuffled in drawers, stamped with rubber ink. Across from you, A child sprawls on the floor with crayons, doodling heroic stick figures battling what looks suspiciously like filing cabinets. There's your quirky detail, the enemy in this. Child's imaginary war isn't a dragon or monster, but a tower of paperwork with angry eyes. Honestly, you can't blame him. The room hums with tension, yet everyone pretends to be calm. You watch people clutch documents like talismans, birth certificates, bank slips, letters of approval. No one dares misplace a page without the right papers. The whole weight becomes meaningless. Every shuffle of paper feels louder than conversation. Scholars still argue whether bureaucratic waiting is a fair price for order or a hidden form of control. Some say it's necessary. Proof of impartial systems treating everyone the same, number by number. Others argue it's dehumanizing, turning citizens into file numbers. Teaching obedience through silence and delay. Is it efficiency or an elaborate patience test? Your number creeps closer. You notice how people prepare before their turn. Some rehearse explanations under their breath. Some shuffle documents nervously, terrified they'll forget a signature. Some just stare blankly, already defeated. You realize the waiting room is its own theater, with everyone practicing for the moment they're called. Finally, the board beeps and flashes your number. You stand, the sound impossibly loud in your ears, and walk to the counter. The clerk behind the glass barely looks up, stamps your papers, mutters a few words, and sends you away in under 2 minutes. Just like that. All that waiting, all that silence, reduced to a single perfunctory gesture. As you step back into the hallway, you glance at the rows of chairs behind you. The numbers haven't stopped. More people have taken your place. The system continues, endless, indifferent. A slow carousel of waiting and forgetting. And yet, you can't shake the thought. Bureaucratic lines don't just waste time. They mold people into quiet shapes, teaching them to exist on someone else's schedule. The door closes behind you, and the hum of fluorescent lights fades. But you know the waiting room is still there, buzzing endlessly, swallowing hours like candy, teaching patience no one ever asked to learn. You notice the air around you, thick with the mix of smells. On one side, the sharp sting of fresh onions and garlic. On the other, the sweet aroma of honey cakes. Somewhere nearby, fish rests too long in the sun, reminding you that not every corner of the market is pleasant. The air is busy, just like the people. You breathe it in slowly, letting the mixture of scents remind you that this place is alive. The smell of wool, of leather, of damp earth underfoot, all blend into one long memory. Here, even the air has layers, and you stand quietly in the middle of it all. You hear the murmur of voices rising and falling like a gentle wave. A merchant names a price. A peasant shakes his head. The merchant lowers the number, but only a little. The peasant sighs, waits, and then nods. The deal is slow, as if neither side is in a hurry. You watch coins pass from hand to hand, shining briefly before vanishing into cloth pouches. Each bargain takes minutes, sometimes longer. No one rushes. The rhythm of the market is steady, patient, and calm. You almost find yourself swaying with the pace of the bargaining, back and forth, give and take, until the trade is done. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. You sink back in your chair or lie down, letting the world of lines, hues, and waiting slowly drift behind your eyelids. The stories you've wandered through, cathedrals, factories, railway stations, amusement parks, wartime ration lines, bureaucratic offices, they all fade gently, like ink dissolving into water. You feel the weight of your body sinking into whatever supports you. Mattress, chair, or floor. Your arms grow heavy, your shoulders slack, and even your feet relax. letting the rhythm of the day's steps settle into nothingness. Every breath you take flows easier, longer, calmer. You can almost hear the faint footsteps of all those people waiting. Their shuffle soft, distant, carried away by time. In your mind's eye, the lines blur. Merchants smile behind counters. Children bounce impatiently. Soldiers carry their burdens. Clerks stamp papers in slow harmony. You are no longer part of any line. You are merely an observer, floating above it all, detached, serene. Each moment of waiting becomes a gentle pulse of life, neither anxious nor hurried. The softest light seems to hug the edges of your vision, a quiet cocoon wrapping you in warmth. Perhaps you imagine the breeze of a late afternoon drifting through a marketplace, carrying scents of fresh bread, leather, and distant fields. Perhaps the hum of factory machinery becomes a lullaby, a metronome of old time guiding you into stillness. The world outside these stories doesn't matter right now. Only the calm matters, only your breathing, only this gentle ease. Your thoughts may wander, briefly recalling a cue, a line, a bell toll, or a ticket stub, but even these memories are soft, like shadows behind curtains. There is no urgency, no expectation, only the slow settling of awareness into quiet corners. You notice a light smile forming as you exhale, tension leaving your shoulders, arms, jaw. Each breath carries a little more peace, each exhale another hint of calm. If you wish, picture yourself walking along a deserted path at dusk, the sun dipping low, painting the clouds in warm, muted colors. No one is in your way. No lines, no waiting. Just you, the gentle sway of trees, and the soft rustle of leaves. The hum of life continues somewhere else, but here, now, you are free. Free to pause, free to rest, free to drift into your own private quiet. And as you sink further, your eyelids grow heavier. Thoughts slow. The world of lines and waiting dissolves entirely. Only the gentle rhythm of breath remains, steady, soothing, guiding you into a deeper calm. The night stretches soft and infinite. You are safe, still, untethered from schedules and obligations, floating in a quiet, timeless space. Sleep is coming, but there is no hurry. Let it arrive naturally, like a tide. Let the calm of every story, every shuffle, every step of waiting you witnessed settle inside you, becoming part of the gentle night. And if you dream, let it be of quiet markets, soft bells, and lines that move without pressure, always ending in peace. You are ready. The world waits outside, but you do not. Your body, your mind, your spirit, everything slows, softens, sighs. And now, as you drift, let the whisper of this calm cradle you into sleep. Sweet dreams.